friends, my name is Marv Machura and welcome to my channel with another episode of Machura on McLuhan. And today we want to talk about education. Now, one of the things that Marshall McLuhan said about education, and he said a lot about education, was that schools of the future will become bomb shelters for media fallout. Now, what did he mean about that? We just have to back up a little bit about this fallout concept because it's something that's probably not in most of our minds these days. But when McLuhan was introducing these concepts in the 60s, it was certainly very much in the forefront of people's consciousness, the idea of a nuclear holocaust, a bomb going off and wiping out the old. But the thing about the bomb shelter was not to shelter just for that first explosion. You had to shelter and you had to have food aside and for a long period of time because the fallout, the nuclear fallout, would last for a number of years after that, and you needed to shelter from that because the fallout is what would kill you if the explosion didn't. So, as a metaphor, this is very appropriate for what behind all of Marshall McLuhan's thinking, and what this presentation and all these presentations are about. That the effect of a new media on us as a society and as a people is very much like a nuclear explosion where old structures are metaphorically blown away, but it's not just a one-time devastation and then you return to rebuild what has been blown away. No, there is a long period of fallout from that new media that continues to affect people in largely negative ways. And in order to shelter from that fallout, we have shelters. And the shelter that he says would be schools. Schools would function as the shelter for media fallout. That means that schools would function as more of a conserving activity than a progressive activity. Schools would shelter society from the harmful fallout after the explosion of the new media coming in. For example, when YouTube entered and Facebook, let's use those two examples. Big devastation on the existing structures of our world, and then a long term of fallout that we're still experiencing, the changes that happen. And schools are the institution in society that perhaps is the last to feel the effects of the media change. Just the nature of the way it is in curriculum and teachers and children. Schools fundamentally are conservative institutions. Of course, in education itself, throughout the 20th century, there's a very much a philosophical debate whether or not how much conservation schools should have and how much progressive elements they should have, whether schooling is a conserving activity or a progressive activity. But without question, you cannot deny that schools fundamentally are the conservation elements in society. We want our children to learn from the past and know those fundamentals in order to handle the life that's beyond school. And if you're not getting that kind of historical or heritage education, if you will, in the school, where are you going to get it? It's not going to come in society. As soon as the new media enters, the structures don't exist there to transfer that knowledge to the younger generation. The only thing that would exist would be the school itself, the teachers, the curriculum, which are much slower to adapt to the changes in the world than the world itself, which is forced to adapt to the changes when those nuclear bombs hit it, those new media, those things that have such devastating or pervasive, full-on effects to us, as the medium is the message that we try to understand. So, as Marshall McLuhan says, schools of the future will become bomb shelters for media fallout. He saw that all these things that would happen with the electronic media, it was at the birth of the age, and he projected into the future all the different things that could possibly happen, and thinking the only way that society could shelter from all those changes, like when the internet arrived and all the other types of media that are now so part of our life, would be inside those walls of the school. I recently taught a biology course here, and it was very interesting to see the older biology teachers who have very much a constructivist kind of prescriptive curriculum, where they're still giving tests to students where they have to, label the different parts of the heart from memory. They're not allowed to use their Google search and look at a picture and then just simply fill in the blanks. They're still conserving the old memory system that was important prior to having a device in your hand where you could look up everything possible in the world that is in our known knowledge. And so the curriculum is now undergoing a change where they're saying that it's more important for the students to be more constructivist in their approach to learning biology, so they can use their phone. And when I was teaching it, I allowed the students to use the phone and the Google searches to apply the knowledge. What was more important to the curriculum to me was for them to be able to apply the knowledge and say have a real life problem with the heart, and then write in an effective kind of question and answer kind of essay that would require them to think, not just regurgitate information, which Google can do so much better than we can. Yet there still has to be some of that that conservation of knowledge. You can't just rely strictly on Google. There must be some memory work allowed, and it's there. It's in the curriculum. The schools could fundamentally just say, as most biology teachers would today, they said, you're not allowed to access Google during your exam. As Marshall McLuhan pointed out, the schools of the future would become, for better or worse, bomb shelters from media fallout. They would become the institutions that would maintain older systems of understanding, older systems of knowing, far much longer than any other institution in society. They're the last to change. They are in that bomb shelter mode where they're kind of waiting for the fallout to all go away, and then they can start understanding it, and how many years backwards they go until you're able to leave the shelter and go out into the world as a whole and functioning human being. So thank you so much, everyone. It's Marv Machura here again with Machura on McLuhan and Marshall McLuhan theory, explained and discussed here from my studio in Vernon, British Columbia. Thank you, everyone. Travel on.